Was Holly Bobo kidnapped? Was she raped? Raped by you?
People talking, voices. It was Holly and a man in camouflage who I identified as Drew, who is her boyfriend.
I said, "That's not Drew, get a gun and shoot him." I just hung up and I collapsed to the floor.
April 13th, 2011. In the quiet town of Darden, Tennessee, 20-year-old nursing student Holly Bobo walked out of her family home to start an ordinary morning. Within minutes, she vanished. Her brother watched helplessly as she disappeared into the woods with a man in camouflage, and she was never seen alive again. What followed was one of Tennessee's largest manhunts, stretching across years, capturing national media attention, and shaking the trust of a small-town community. When Holly's remains were finally discovered 3 years later, the trial that followed didn't end the story, it deepened the mystery. With no DNA evidence and a star witness who later admitted to lying, the verdict left behind more questions than answers. So what really happened to Holly Bobo, and did Tennessee truly deliver justice, or was the system pushed beyond its limits? This documentary examines a real criminal case involving the disappearance and tragic death of Holly Bobo. Viewer discretion is advised. We will avoid graphic detail, focus on the investigation, trial and reforms, and tell Holly's story with respect and care. Darden, Tennessee in 2011 looked like the picture of safety. A town of just a few hundred people, its days were marked by the sound of church bells, the hum of pickup trucks rolling down country roads, and the certainty that neighbors knew and trusted each other. It was a place where people still left doors unlocked, where families gathered on porches in the evenings, and where a stranger walking down the street would stand out instantly. At the heart of the story was Holly Lynn Bobo. Born in 1990, she grew up in a home defined by faith, discipline, and care. Her parents, Dana and Karen, instilled values of kindness and perseverance in both Holly and her brother Clint. Holly was known for her compassion, her quiet determination, and her unshakable work ethic. Teachers described her as diligent. Friends remembered her loyalty, and her family spoke of her as the glue that held them together. Holly wasn't just another face in the crowd. By 20, she was enrolled at the University of Tennessee at Martin's Parsons Center, pursuing nursing. She had a clear dream: to heal, to help, to comfort others. Professors and classmates noted her dedication, but also her humility. She didn't pursue nursing for status, but because she wanted to ease suffering. She was also deeply rooted in her community. Holly often volunteered at her local church, babysat for neighbors, and took part in outdoor traditions like fishing and hunting. She balanced this small-town life with ambition that stretched far beyond Decatur County. And she wasn't alone on this journey. Her boyfriend, Drew Scott, was a steady, supportive presence. Many expected their relationship to lead to marriage, but Holly was more than her accomplishments. She was a daughter who called her mom her best friend, a sister who shared inside jokes with Clint, and a girlfriend who talked of building a future. She embodied both small-town values and big ambitions, a blend that made her disappearance all the more devastating. For the people of Darden, Holly represented hope and promise. She wasn't just someone's child, she was their child, raised among them, woven into their daily lives. That's why what happened on April 13, 2011 would not just break one family's heart. It would shatter an entire town's sense of safety. Because in places like Darden, things like this weren't supposed to happen. But as dawn broke that morning, the small-town peace everyone trusted was about to be destroyed forever. April 13, 2011 began like any other spring morning in Decatur County. Holly was awake early, preparing for a nursing exam she planned to take later that day. Her parents had already left for work, leaving Holly and her older brother Clint at the house. At 7:30 a.m., Holly phoned her boyfriend, Drew Scott. He was out turkey hunting on her grandmother's nearby land. The call was short, casual. Drew later recalled nothing unusual, just a normal morning between the two of them. But within minutes, everything changed. The family dogs began barking wildly, alerting Clint inside the house. Half asleep, he looked out the window and saw his sister near the carport, speaking to a man in camouflage. From that distance, the figure looked like Drew. Same clothes, same build. Clint assumed it was the boyfriend, but something didn't sit right. Holly's voice carried through the morning air. Clint later remembered hearing her say, "No, Why? Those words, filled with confusion and fear, would haunt him for years. As Clint hesitated, the phone rang. It was Karen, his mother. When he described what he saw, her response was instant and sharp. "Clint, that's not Drew. Get a gun." By the time Clint reacted, it was too late. Looking again, he saw Holly walking into the woods with the man. She wasn't screaming, but her body language was tense. It was as though she was complying under threat. Within seconds, they both vanished into the trees. At 7:55 a.m., Clint dialed 911. His frantic call was misrouted at first, costing critical minutes, but law enforcement soon arrived. Officers noted signs of a struggle near the carport, confirming that Holly had not left willingly. Word of Holly's disappearance spread through Darden like wildfire. By mid-morning, volunteers flooded the area. Friends, neighbors, church members, everyone who knew Holly joined the search. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and the FBI arrived, turning the countryside into the center of one of the state's largest manhunts. Helicopters swept over fields. Search dogs tracked scents through dense woods. Boats scoured nearby creeks and rivers. Flyers were stapled to telephone poles across counties. Pink ribbons, Holly's favorite color, appeared on mailboxes and car windows. Investigators found scattered pieces of evidence. Holly's lunchbox on a roadside, a receipt with her name, and cell phone pings showing movement north toward Interstate 40. Each clue offered hope, yet none brought her home. As days turned into weeks, the media amplified the case. National programs like America's Most Wanted and Nancy Grace broadcast Holly's photo, urging viewers to help. Her story captured the nation's attention, a young nursing student abducted in broad daylight from her own home. Parents across America felt a chill. If this could happen in a town like Darden, it could happen anywhere. Suspicion soon focused on Terry Britt, a local convicted sex offender. He matched Clint's description of the camouflage man. Investigators searched his home, tapped his phone, and kept him under surveillance. For months, he was considered a prime suspect, yet prosecutors never filed charges. Without solid evidence, the case stalled. For Holly's family, the uncertainty was agonizing. Karen and Dana held vigils, begged for leads, and faced cameras with weary determination. Clint, racked with guilt for not recognizing the danger sooner, kept mostly silent. The town held onto hope, but as months passed, it grew harder to believe Holly would be found alive. Then in September 2014, 3 years after her disappearance, the truth surfaced. Larry Stone, a local man searching for wild ginseng in the woods near his home, spotted an overturned bucket. Beneath it, he found human remains. Investigators confirmed what the Bobo family had feared all along. It was Holly. The search was over, but the heartbreak was just beginning. For her parents, the discovery meant closure, but not peace. For the community, it confirmed their worst fears. For law enforcement, it shifted the mission from searching for Holly to building a case strong enough to secure justice. But the evidence would prove thin, and the way investigators chose to pursue justice would spark years of courtroom battles, contested confessions, and testimony that even now is questioned. Because Holly's body had been found, but the truth about what really happened to her that remained in the shadows. The discovery of Holly Bobo's remains in 2014 gave investigators new momentum and pressure. The public wanted answers. The family wanted closure, and prosecutors wanted convictions. Within months, 3 names surfaced as suspects: Zachary Adams, his brother Dylan Adams, and their friend Jason Autry. Zachary was painted as the ringleader, a man with a history of drug abuse and erratic behavior. Dylan, whose intellectual disabilities made him particularly vulnerable in police interrogations, was said to have confessed to seeing Holly at Zachary's house. Jason Autry, facing charges himself, soon became the state's star witness. But there was a glaring problem: no direct forensic evidence. No DNA, no fingerprints, no hair fibers tied Zachary or anyone else to Holly. What the state had instead were statements, many of which shifted over time. Dylan initially told investigators he had seen Holly alive at Zachary's home. He even described her clothing. Prosecutors claimed this detail proved he was telling the truth. Yet Dylan later recanted, insisting his confession had been coerced after hours of pressure. His defense team argued that his disability made him easily manipulated. Then there was Jason Autry. In exchange for leniency, he testified that he and Zachary had taken Holly's body to a river and that Zachary had killed her during the disposal. His account was vivid, horrifying, and powerful in court. But critics immediately pointed to flaws. Autry had access to case details before testifying, and years later, in 2024, he admitted much of his story had been fabricated to save himself. Still, in 2017, the trial of Zachary Adams began. The courtroom was packed with reporters, Holly's grieving family, and a community desperate for answers. Prosecutors leaned heavily on Autry's testimony and Dylan's earlier statements. They argued that despite the absence of physical evidence, the pattern of behavior, witness remarks, and Zachary's alleged incriminating comments painted a clear picture of guilt. The defense fought back, pointing out inconsistencies and emphasizing the lack of DNA. They argued that the state was under immense pressure to deliver anyone, to the public. Without solid forensic ties, they claimed, the prosecution's case was speculation dressed as certainty. The jury deliberated and returned with a verdict, guilty on all counts. Zachary Adams was sentenced to life in prison without parole, plus additional years for related charges. For Holly's family, it was a bittersweet moment. They finally had accountability, but questions lingered. Dylan Adams avoided trial by entering an offered plea, maintaining his innocence while acknowledging prosecutors had enough evidence to convict him. He was sentenced to 35 years. Jason Autry, the state's star witness, walked free after serving just a few years, thanks to his cooperation. Legally, the case was closed, but in the court of public opinion, it was far from settled. Many wondered, was justice truly served, or had the state built its case on shaky ground? Because even as Zachary began his life sentence, shadows of doubt remained. And with Autry's later confession that he had lied, those shadows only grew darker. By the time the trials ended, the Holly Bobo case had already reshaped Tennessee, not just in law, but in the way communities thought about safety, justice, and trust. Holly's story was more than a headline. It became a catalyst for change. One of the clearest legacies was the Holly Bobo Act of 2014. Before this law, Amber Alerts in Tennessee were limited to children under 18. Because Holly was 20 when she vanished, her case did not qualify for an immediate statewide alert. The new law raised the age limit to 21, ensuring young adults would not fall through the cracks again. It was signed swiftly with bipartisan support and has since helped mobilize searches more quickly in other cases. Holly's name also lives on physically. Highway 641, which runs through Decatur County, was renamed the Holly Bobo Memorial Highway. For locals, it's a daily reminder that her life mattered. For travelers, it's a marker of a tragedy that shook even the smallest, most trusting corners of America. Her family chose to channel their grief into something constructive. At the University of Tennessee at Martin, a nursing scholarship fund was established in Holly's honor. Each year, students receive financial support to pursue the same path Holly once dreamed of. These future nurses carry forward her compassion, making her impact real in hospitals and communities across the state. But the legacy isn't only in reforms and scholarships. It's also in the hard conversations her case sparked. Legal scholars continue to debate the fairness of her trial. The reliance on coerced confessions and incentivized testimony became case studies in law schools about the risks of building prosecutions without solid forensic evidence. Autry's 2024 admission that he fabricated much of his testimony further fueled criticism, raising the haunting question, did Tennessee convict the right man? The media coverage also triggered broader reflection. Holly's disappearance made national news almost immediately, with nightly segments on Nancy Grace and features on America's Most Wanted. Some analysts pointed to this as an example of missing white woman syndrome, where victims who are young, white, and female receive disproportionate coverage compared to victims from other backgrounds. Holly's story deserved attention, but the imbalance highlighted systemic issues in how America tells, and sometimes ignores, certain stories of loss. For the Bobo family, however, the focus was never on academic debate or media criticism. Their mission was always clear: to honor Holly's life. Each October, on her birthday, friends and relatives gathered to remember her, releasing balloons and lighting candles. These rituals reaffirm that she was more than a victim. She was a beloved daughter, sister, and friend. Her brother Clint, who witnessed her final moments at home, continues to live with the trauma of that day. He has largely avoided the public spotlight, but those close to him say he carries an unshakable burden of guilt. His silence is a reminder that survivors often pay lifelong costs. Yet even through their grief, Dana and Karen, Holly's parents, have shown extraordinary resilience. They speak at events for missing persons, encourage other families, and remind audiences that behind every headline is a human being. Their advocacy has inspired many, showing that love can be stronger than tragedy. More than a decade later, Tennessee has not forgotten Holly. Her name appears in legislative records. Her scholarship continues to support nurses, and her story is taught in criminal justice courses as both an inspiration and a cautionary tale. In the words of one local pastor, "Evil may have taken Holly's life, but it did not extinguish her light. That light shines each time an alert goes out faster, each time a student nurses someone back to health, and each time we remember her with love." The Holly Bobo case is remembered not just as a crime, but as a turning point. It forced reforms, sparked debates, and united a community. Yet one question still lingers. Did the system truly find justice for Holly, or did it fail her in ways we may never fully know? The Holly Bobo case stands as one of Tennessee's most haunting stories, a tragedy that revealed both the strength and the fragility of the justice system. Holly was a daughter, a sister, and a student whose future was stolen. Her disappearance shattered a small-town community, her trial divided a state, and her legacy continues to shape laws and lives more than a decade later. Through the Holly Bobo Act, through the highway that bears her name, and through scholarships that support future nurses, her light endures. But lingering questions remain. Did the trial deliver justice, or did it reveal the limits of a system under pressure? What we know is this: Holly's story will never be forgotten. She continues to inspire reform, compassion, and remembrance. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more thoughtful true crime analyses, and join us next time for another case where law, loss, and legacy collide.